All right, look at that. I think we're rolling down the river. It feels like it's been a while since I've done a podcast, even though I always do it on the same day. It's just a lot has happened between now and the last one. I've been in a lot of different places, and that's left me with, honestly, little time to think, little mental space to sit back and reflect. And sure, I still give myself the time. I'm still definitely doing writing times. I take 30 minutes of silence every day to find something to write about. But even in that time, I find in the recent, it's just been less and less that hits me to write about. And with that, I didn't specifically have something that really stuck out to me like this is going to be what I'm talking about in the podcast. Some weeks it's very clear, others not so. But that doesn't negate the fact that I'm going to still sit here and talk about something. And what did just hit me, literally a handful of minutes ago, was the fact that why am I not worried? Why is it not a big deal that right now I'm not thinking about life that much? I am just kind of living in the moment. Why is that okay for me? Because in the past, I would hit moments in my life of feeling very helpless. And that isn't the case anymore. Why is that? Why is it for me that it has been so long since I've had this moment of helplessness? Why do I feel like I'm in control? And that's the question I want to answer to myself as much as help give direction for you guys. If you do feel helpless still, if you do feel like you're not there yet, or maybe even simply just understanding the position where you're at. Because it all comes down to trust. What does hopelessness feel like? Well, usually it is the combination of not trusting yourself or not trusting the environment around you. But I would say more so not being able to trust your own self, your own actions within that environment around you. Because that is the one thing that we can control. Again, we can't control everything else around us, but we can control our reactions to it. And that's how we have to go about these things. I would even say, to take that a step further, you can't even control your emotions, but you can control the reactions to those emotions. I talked about this last week in the podcast, where if you have an emotion pop up, today's world, a lot of negative emotions are very easily distracted. We distract from them quite often. If you feel tired, have some caffeine. If you're bored, go on YouTube. There's a distraction for any of these feelings that are it's trying to push us in the right direction, but if our reaction is wrong, if our reaction is simply a distraction from it, then we don't get that actual outcome from the emotion itself. Tiredness is telling us we need better sleep. Boredom is telling us we need to do something different. We need to try something new, engage ourselves. But if we just simply look for a distraction, something that can feel like it's giving us the result, but in the end, we haven't changed. We haven't actually helped ourselves. In this sense, if you cannot trust yourself to do the right thing, to have the right reaction, it can feel a bit hopeless. So what are things, what is going to get you there? And I've thought about this, and it feels like to get into the position where you're not consistently hopeless is almost luck. And I would like to hear others' opinions on this, because I don't like that answer, to be honest, but I continue to think about this. Why am I here in this position that I am? Because before in life, there was moments where I hit a very, very low state. And I can't honestly tell you that it was simply my own will that got me to where I am today. That was a big part of it. But what got me there in the first place, to a state of mind where I even believed that I could change, that I could actually do something for myself? Because that wasn't always the case. That wasn't always my belief system. What made me think that? Was it simply a random action that happened in my life that made that thought pop into my head, that made me make the first actual change to benefit myself? What pushed me over the ledge and pushed me into a positive direction? Could I have just as easily experienced something that pushed me in the other direction, pushed me in a way to make me believe even more that I couldn't change myself, that I couldn't do anything about it? And I do not know. I would love to hear more perspectives on this. If you have a certain situation within your life where you believe it's one way over another, please let me know, because I don't like the answer that I have, but that's the conclusion I continue to come to. And I'm very blessed to have been pushed over that edge, so to say, to be on the other side. And that doesn't negate the fact that I've put in a lot of work. I could have been pushed over the edge and started to believe that it was in my control and just not taken it within my control. Those are two different things. And so I'm still very proud of everything that I've done to achieve the life that I'm living right now. But how did I get to the point where I could have made that decision? I believe a big part of it was simply the randomness of life. And so how can I give advice to someone who feels consistently hopeless when I myself more or less believe that it is simply, you got to get there. You got to find your own point where you will start trusting yourselves, trusting the fact that you can make change. With that being said, I would think that anyone brave enough to tune into a podcast with such a title and stay to this point at the very least is someone who still consciously believes that they can make effort to change their life, that they have a control within that. So what can we do within that? How can we make it so that you probably won't feel helpless again, or definitely won't feel helpless again if you implement this, right? I'm not going to sit here and give you a list of do this, do this, do this, but I am going to go through what I believe impacts my life, what I have seen impacts my life, and how that contributes to me just simply believing in myself. I don't have this helpless state, or I don't reach this helpless state anymore, where I just feel like nothing's going to go in my way, because I continually show myself that I can do it. Now, the best thing that I personally find is having something to look back on and say, I've done this consistently, usually daily, over and over and over again. I show up for myself. Now, for me personally, I have many different streaks, if you want to call them that. I don't necessarily keep track of the day of how many days I do them, but I do know I do them every single day for a long time. It's probably 2 years, 3 years now that I have taken 30 minutes every single day to write. And I have done push-ups. And I do those to show myself that I can show up, do something that I don't always necessarily want to do, but it is beneficial. It's not the funnest to sit there with a blank piece of paper, especially on days like today when you have no idea what you're going to write about and you're just straining your brain, looking at all corners of your life. But in the end, it's the result that I want. The same with the push-ups. There's days where I don't feel physically fit enough to do them, or I just simply don't want to. I don't have the energy for it. I'd rather spend it somewhere else, but I still do it because I know I can count on myself. It's not about doing the push-ups. It's not about the actual physical benefit from it. I don't care about that. It's about showing up and showing myself once more that I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the thing. And then if I am able to take that data and say I'm able to do these things when I say I'm going to do them, and I can show myself every single day that I'm doing those, then I have to also make the application to say that means I can do X, Y, and Z. When I think I am going to do something, I end up doing it. It's the same thing with this podcast. Even on days like today where I have no idea what to talk about, I don't even have my notebook today, which I usually have at least one bullet point written down. I'm just freestyling here. I still come down and sit and I do it. And that is another tick on the confidence level. That is where the hopelessness starts to lose its footing. Because how can you feel hopeless if you continue to show yourself that you can do it, and not only that, you will do it? This is the very foundation of my life, really. If I didn't have these consistencies, sure, I would be at a good place still, but I don't think I would be where I'm at today. The consistency of writing specifically, sitting down and making sure there is time in every single day of my life where I have a moment to think about what is going on, where I am not simply consuming more and more and more. I am taking time to understand what I have consumed, to process what has happened before me in a very conscious manner. And that has opened up doors like crazy, pushed me in directions that I would never necessarily go if I had just simply let it be, simply let the day continue on without taking this mental break, without taking this mental active state to understand what is going on in my life. Do I like the direction? Am I pushing myself hard enough? What is tomorrow going to look like? What is today going to look like? Being able to have that time and give myself that time has been a great blessing for myself. That's another big thing. So not just being able to show yourself that you're consistently doing stuff, but giving yourself the time to understand what you're trying to do in the first place. Because another part of hopelessness is the fact of, do I even know what I want? Not that you have to have it all figured out, but if you don't give yourself time to even think about consistently and consciously in a very calm state, what do I want? You can wait until the hopelessness comes around and then say, shit, what do I want? I got to pick something. I got to do something. But take a step back. If you give yourself time every single day to question, what do you want? What direction are you going in? Where should I go next? You never hit that panic mode because you always have something. It's not that you have a plan laid out from front to back. You know what you're going to do, but you always have a next step. You always have a direction, a push in one way or another. And that's going to keep you away from the hopelessness because you always have that next step. And if you give yourself time every single day, or often enough at the very least, then you will always reach that next step without hitting a blind spot, without finding yourself completely lost. And I can't sit here and say that you will do writing as well, that writing will be that exact implementation. But you have to find what works for you. What is your way of understanding your life? For me, I understand that is best put out through writing. And now I am understanding how I can implement talking within that. I record voice messages to talk out things. I have been doing the podcast, of course. And so I'm expanding my ways. But you yourself have to find, is it talking with a certain friend? Is it writing something to yourself, writing something to someone else? Is it recording a voice message? Is it simply sitting down and meditating, closing your eyes and having nothing going on? But how do you find the time to understand your own life, to process what is going on? How do you do that the best? That's a decision that you have to make. I can't sit here and tell you what is going to be the best for you because everyone is different. I don't want to sit here and tell you to live my life or that my routines are great and perfect. I just give you the framework, really, and say this is what has been working for me. Find your own way to help implement that in your life. And that's what I do when I look at other people, even the people out there telling this is how this and this, this is the perfect morning routine. Wake up at 5 a.m., blah, 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 blah. And I look at that and say, great, okay. From that I can take the fact that when they are waking up at a specific time, it is doing this and this and this for them. I don't have to wake up at 5 a.m., but I do want to trust myself within my sleep schedule. Great. I think everyone does. I think everyone wants to have good sleep. It's just the fact that most people think they can't have good sleep and the rest of the things they want in life. And so I take a very open perspective, and I try to hold my, I don't know, anyone that goes up there and just says that what they are doing is the optimum, the best way to do it, I just feel that's coming out of a direction of fearfulness that they themselves aren't honestly doing the best for them. Because if they are so certain that you have to do this, it seems fearful. If they say, I do this and I understand why I do this, well, that doesn't mean you're going to have the same reasonings. Then I understand them. Then I understand where they're coming from, and I'm actually more likely to listen up, more likely to perk an ear, because they're not trying to force their life on me. They're trying to explain what has helped benefit them and what does that look like in the raw basics. What can any person take from that and apply it in their own way? The applications are vast, but in a sense, there are all needs that we need to meet as human beings. Movement, socialization, sleep, eating, how we go about them can vary quite differently. But we're all faced with these, I don't want to call them issues because they're not necessarily issues. We're all faced with these qualities of life that we have to balance. We have to find our own way to take a step into them. I'm going to take a little drink of water so I don't choke on my own breath, because it has been dry out here recently. Another thing that has helped me not feel hopeless in the recent is the fact that I'm okay when things go wrong. I'm okay to be in an uncomfortable situation. I know that I have time to let things happen. I have so many years in my life, and instead of using that as an excuse to say, I have so many years ahead of me, I can do whatever I want now and then really, form up into to be the perfect person, I can do that in the future. Right now I can just, go with the wind. No, I actually look at it opposite. I have to figure out who the heck I am right now so that in the future I can loosen up in the fact of being able to actually do what I actually want. That doesn't mean the easy things. It doesn't mean always the fun things. But what do I actually want to achieve in my life? I have to understand that now so I can perform that in the future. But I have so many years. Am I really going to sit here and wonder, have I picked the right direction? Am I doing the optimal thing all the time? Because that pushes me into a state of scarcity. Thinking that I only have so much time to do everything and everything has to be perfect or else I've failed. This is literally the fear of hopelessness, the fact that you can't do anything anymore. There's too little time, or you can't trust yourself with the time that you have. You're hopeless. But if you are able to relax, say to yourself, take a chill pill, man. Maybe it's not that big of a deal that you're spending some of this time figuring things out still. That you're learning, that you're making mistakes, that you're not taking the most efficient path. You know, what is efficiency? Just trying to achieve stuff as fast as possible? I believe there's a much deeper efficiency in letting things go as they go, and then you find a deeper understanding from within that. You understand it better. You can have someone just tell you, "Oh, you wouldn't like to do that," but you really only understand it until you've tried the thing, usually, and then you're on the other side and you say, "Okay, I understand why I didn't want to do that, and I understand why I want to push myself in a better direction." Don't look at that as a failure. Look at that as an amazing opportunity. If you don't want to feel hopeless, stop looking for a reason to be hopeless. Because it can be an identity, really, to feel like nothing is going your way. And if that's been your identity for a long time, well, you'd rather be right about your identity than wrong and better, even though being wrong in this sense means you aren't actually hopeless. You do have the chance to change. But that is going against something that you have believed for many years. And that is change, and change is never comfortable. Are you willing to be wrong and uncomfortable for the fact of bettering your life? Or are you always going to sit with this identity that I am just someone who's in a hopeless situation? And the hopelessness doesn't have to be an overarching hopelessness. It can be a hopelessness in just one single area. Well, I believe I can change every single other aspect of my life except this one here. This one will always be something that I don't want it to be. And I have no power over that. I can change here and here and here, but here I have no power. Why? I can't do it. So you can have hopelessness on a large scale of just a life crisis, or on a very small scale of just one thing. And everything in between, of course. So don't just think I'm talking to the people who are hitting rock bottom on every single aspect. I'm also talking to the people that have little thoughts about not being able to change in this one certain aspect. That is a form of hopelessness. That is a little hole in the boat that's leaking water. You got to patch it up. Because thinking that you can't change in one area is going to change your understanding of how you're going to be able to change the entire rest. If you truthfully believe one thing can't change, well, then you're going to more easily believe that the next thing couldn't change, and the next thing, and then suddenly you are truthfully hitting that rock bottom hopelessness. So understand that the majority of things in life are in your control, or have an aspect of control that you can take care of. Not everything is, of course, but a lot more than people are usually willing to admit. All right. This has been a very interesting pod. I feel like mentally I'm in a good ending spot. So, like I said before, if you have any comments and if you just want to yell at me, do that in the comments below, please. I love to hear any sort of comment, but especially the ones where people are actually expanding on what I had to say or giving their own point of view, perspective. Would love to see that from anyone. If you liked it, you can like it. If you dislike it, you can dislike it. I guess you could subscribe. Make sure to drink lots of water, because it's probably hot wherever you're at, and water is God. And don't spill your water. And no, my shoe's a little wet, so I'm gonna end it right there. Take it easy, take it breezy, and don't be too cheesy.